Chapter 12. The Last Chance. For a few long, agonizing moments, the study was completely silent. Alice stared at the perfectly circular, smoking hole burned through the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. The air still crackled with the sharp, ozone-scented static of the briarwood, slowly chasing away the heavy, suffocating dissonance that had choked the room only seconds before. The dark magician was gone. The silence was finally broken by a long, dramatic sigh. "I am incredibly glad to be out of that pack," Poppet projected, sitting neatly amidst the scattered ancient scrolls on the floor and giving his sleek black coat a fastidious shake. "It is not the way I prefer to travel. It smelled faintly of old cheese, and there was not even a nice pillow to snuggle into." The sheer absurd normalcy of the cat's complaint broke the spell. Alice let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. She scrambled around the massive, displaced mahogany desk, grabbing Mal by the arm and helping him up from the stone floor. The Scotsman groaned, clutching his ribs tightly beneath his stolen leather armour, but his blue eyes were shining with exhausted triumph. Alice didn't hesitate. She threw her arms around him, pulling him into a tight, desperate hug. "I'm so glad that's over with," Alice whispered against his shoulder, her legs finally trembling as the adrenaline crashed. Mal hugged her back fiercely, letting out a rough, breathless chuckle. "Aye, that was entirely too close." "It is not over yet," Poppet interrupted, his mental voice cutting through their relief with sharp, cold logic. He hopped lightly onto the shattered remains of Severin's chair. "The guards are still outside. Even though this soundproof chamber kept the events of the last minute from them, they will not stay out there forever. They will check on their master eventually." Alice pulled back, the cold reality settling heavily back into her stomach. Poppet was right. They had dealt with Severin, but they were still deep in the bowels of an inverted castle, swarming with thousands of bloodthirsty mercenaries. "We need to move the desk and the broken chair out of the way," Poppet instructed, his yellow eyes darting toward the heavy obsidian door. "We can use the Scotsman's device to open a portal out of here, but we require a clear trajectory through the shelves." "But we cannot leave without our kin, brother," Mango projected suddenly, his golden eyes wide with distress as he looked toward the narrow stone corridor that led back to the harvest room. "They are dying in that pit. The siphon is still draining them." "We have to come back, Mango," Mal rasped, leaning heavily against the mahogany desk and wincing. He looked down at the distressed black cat, his expression grim but resolute. "We don't have the time to do anything else right now. We don't have our weapons, and we absolutely cannot defeat those two ironclad guards outside that door." Mango's ears flattened, his tail drooping sadly against the stone floor. "They are so close. I can still feel their agony." "I know," Alice said softly, kneeling down to stroke Mango's head. "I promise you, Mango, we are coming back for them. But we have to survive today to do it." With heavy hearts, Alice and Mal turned their attention to the wreckage. It took all of their remaining strength, their muscles screaming in protest, but they managed to shove the massive mahogany desk and chair away from the smouldering bookshelf. Mal walked over to the desk and picked up his leather pouch. He pulled out the silver and gold device, the flawless blue crystal catching the dim, flickering light of the study. Before Mal could focus his mind on the crystal to open the veil, Mango suddenly bounded onto the cleared mahogany desk. His golden eyes were wide, his tail twitching with sudden, frantic energy. "No, wait!" Mango projected, his mental voice ringing with excitement. "I have an idea." Mal paused, lowering the silver disc. "An idea? Mango, we're out of time. If those guards come in here—" "Exactly!" Mango interrupted, pacing rapidly across the scattered star charts. "We want them to come in. We want them to chase us." Alice stared at the black cat, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. "Are you insane? They're huge, Mango. They'll slaughter us." "Not if they are not in this room anymore," Mango countered smoothly, his golden eyes flashing with sudden devious brilliance. He pointed his nose at the silver and gold disc in Mal's hand. "Scotsman, if we open a portal to somewhere relatively safe and very far away, we can make them chase us through it." Poppet hopped gracefully onto the mahogany desk beside his brother, his yellow eyes widening as the plan clicked into place. A tactical retreat. We lure the ironclad guards into another realm, outrun them, and then dive back through the veil before they can follow. And when they are trapped on the other side, Mango finished triumphantly, his tail wrapping neatly around his paws, we simply close the door behind us. Mal looked from the cats to the heavy obsidian door, his sun-bleached beard twitching as a slow, dangerous grin spread across his face. "It's madness," Mal breathed, gripping the silver compass tightly. "It relies entirely on us being faster than two heavily armoured brutes with massive weapons." "We are," Alice said suddenly, the adrenaline spiking hot and fast in her veins. She checked the buckle on her slender sword, ensuring it wouldn't trip her up. "They're wearing jagged iron plate armour. We're in leather. If we get a running start, they won't catch us before we double back." "Then we require a destination," Poppet projected, his mental voice sharp and focused. "Somewhere with open space to run, but not immediately lethal upon entry." "The library is out," Mal muttered, his thumb rubbing the intricate gold rim of the device. "And Bast is too risky. What about your world, Alice? The Briarwood?" Alice shook her head frantically, her eyes wide behind her rough fabric mask. "No, we can't lead those monsters to my cottage. If the portal closes late, they'll be trapped in my garden." "Fair point," Mal conceded quickly. He closed his eyes, his brow furrowing in deep concentration. "All right, I know a place. It's an old abandoned realm I visited 2 years ago. Nothing but endless rolling plains of tall grass. No people, no cliffs, and plenty of room to run." "Perfect," Mango purred, already hopping down from the desk to take his position near the scorched hole in the bookshelves. "Open the portal, Scotsman. Alice, invite them in." Mal raised the silver and gold disc, bringing the flawless blue crystal up to his right eye. He didn't picture the terrifying dissonance of Severin's realm. He focused entirely on the memory of the endless wind-swept grass. The azure light within the crystal flared to life, illuminating the cramped study with a brilliant, pulsing glow. Alice didn't hesitate. She grabbed Severin's ornate silver cane from where it had fallen on the dusty stone floor. The metal was unnaturally heavy and still hummed faintly with the dark magician's corrupted static. She marched to the heavy, perfectly smooth obsidian door. There was no handle to grab, no lock to pick, and the guards outside wouldn't hear a simple knock through the enchanted rock. Alice gripped the silver cane tightly in both hands, raised it high, and brought the heavy polished head crashing down against the centre of the black stone door. A violent explosion of violet sparks showered over Alice's stolen leather armour, hissing loudly in the quiet study. The impact didn't just rattle the door, a huge, deafening, echoing boom travelled straight through the obsidian, shaking the very foundations of the narrow corridor outside. It was an unmistakable sound of raw magic, the kind of noise that only their dark master would make. A split second later, the heavy obsidian door swung silently inward. The 2 massive ironclad guards were standing exactly where Severin had left them, but they didn't see their dark master. They saw a filthy mercenary in stolen leather armour wielding Severin's cane, and behind her the blinding blue light of unauthorized magic. "Hey," smiled Alice, "your boss had to leave, but he said we could take over for a while." The guards froze, looked at each other, and then, with a deafening metallic roar of pure fury, the guard with the double-bladed battle-axe lunged forward, raising his weapon high above his head. The second guard, gripping his humming mace, charged right behind him, their heavy iron armour clanking terribly as they stampeded into the study. "Now!" Alice yelled, dropping the silver cane and sprinting toward the bookshelves. Portal weavers! Mal shouted. Mango and Poppet's coats erupted into brilliant geometric blue fire. The air between them shattered violently, tearing open a massive swirling vortex of cool starlit energy directly over the scorched hole in the wood. Alice didn't even slow down. She hit the edge of the mahogany desk, vaulted over the scattered star charts, and dove headfirst into the rippling blue light. Mal was right behind her, his heavy leather boots thudding against the stone floor. The guards roared in outrage, the massive battle axe swinging down in a deadly arc that shattered the mahogany desk into splinters just inches behind Mal's heels as he leaped into the portal. For a split second, Alice was completely weightless, suspended in the rushing, starlit energy of the veil. Then her boots slammed into soft, yielding earth. She hit the ground running, the transition so smooth she barely stumbled. The heavy, suffocating dissonance of Severin's study vanished instantly, replaced by a rush of clean, sweet-smelling air. She was sprinting through a sea of incredibly tall, golden-green grass that whipped against her stolen leather armour. Above her, a brilliant, flawless azure sky stretched endlessly in every direction, dotted with lazy, impossibly fluffy pink clouds. The landscape was serene, unbroken by mountains or ruined forests, just miles of gentle rolling hills bathing in warm sunlight. It was a picture of absolute tranquility. And then the portal behind her erupted. With a deafening crash of iron and fury, the two massive guards burst through the rippling blue light. They hit the soft earth with enough force to shake the ground, their heavy boots tearing deep gouges into the pristine grass. "Keep moving!" Mal roared, his voice booming across the peaceful plain. He had already caught up to Alice, his long legs eating up the distance as he took the lead. The tall grass parted before him like a wave, his heavy wool cloak billowing behind his leather armour. Alice pumped her arms, her lungs burning as she fought to keep pace. She risked a single terrified glance over her shoulder. The guards weren't just following, they were closing the distance. Despite being clad head to toe in thick, jagged iron plate armour and carrying weapons that looked heavy enough to crush a boulder, the two nightmares were moving with terrifying, unnatural speed. The dissonance of their dark master still clung to them, fueling their massive strides as they tore through the serene landscape. "They're fast!" Alice gasped, her voice ragged as she hurdled a small, mossy rock hidden in the grass. "For such big chaps, they really move!" "Don't look back!" Mal yelled, veering sharply to the right. He led her on a wide, long, arcing run around the base of a small, gentle hill. The strategy was clear. They needed to outrun the guards just long enough to circle back to the portal before the ironclad monsters could cut off their escape. The chase was surreal. The thundering footsteps of the armoured giants and their guttural, wordless roars of fury shattered the peaceful silence of the pink-clouded realm. Alice's legs felt like lead, the heavy leather armour weighing her down with every agonising step. The rhythmic, terrifying clank-clank-clank of the iron plating was growing louder, the vibration of their pursuit travelling up through the soft earth and into her boots. They rounded the far side of the hill, the tall grass whipping wildly around their waists. Ahead of them, hovering just above the golden sea of grass, the swirling blue vortex of the portal still hung open, a jagged tear in the serene sky. "Almost there!" Mal pushed himself harder, his chest heaving as he sprinted the final 50 yards. Alice was right behind him, but she could hear the heavy, ragged breathing of the guards now. The air behind her suddenly hummed with violent violet energy. The second guard was raising his mace, preparing to strike. Mal didn't slow down. He hit the edge of the portal at a dead sprint, diving headfirst into the starlit energy and vanishing. Alice threw herself forward, her arms outstretched. A massive iron gauntlet swiped through the air, the rusted fingertips grazing the heel of her leather boot just as she breached the rippling blue light. The clean, sweet air of the plains was instantly ripped away. Alice tumbled out of the portal, crashing painfully onto the dusty stone floor of Severin's ruined study. She slid across the scattered star charts, gasping for air as she scrambled desperately to her hands and knees. On the far side of the room, sitting perfectly still amidst the scorched bookshelves, Mango and Poppet were waiting. Their golden eyes were blazing, and their sleek black coats were pulsing with brilliant, blinding blue runes. The moment Alice cleared the threshold, their magic flared. With a sharp final pop, the massive blue vortex snapped shut. The terrifying roar of the charging guards, the heavy clank of iron armour, and the sweet smell of the tall grass vanished instantly, leaving nothing behind but the scorched hole in the mahogany wood. The study was plunged back into heavy, stifling silence.